message today is by faith. I started thinking about this here a couple weeks ago when I was watching wrestling, and on wrestling, CM Punk used the term, telling his little follower guys that run around with him. And I like CM Punk, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of weird on these things. He tells his followers to have faith. But what he technically meant was to have faith that he was going to win by helping him win the Royal Rumble or something. I don't know, it was just silly. But I just started thinking about the word, to have faith. How many people have the wrong understanding of what it means to have faith? What does it mean to have faith? And what are you having faith in? You know, how does that change your life? If you say you have faith in something, what does that even mean? I mean, really think about it for a second. I mean, what does faith mean? Does it change anything? You know, scientists basically, their idea of saying having faith in something or using the term to have faith, they said we use that as a way to explain things that we don't know, the unknown. We say we just have faith. It's unknown, so we just have faith. But once it becomes known, then you don't really have to have faith anymore because the scientists can understand it. And that's too bad, because that's technically really not what faith is all about. So scientists said that basically faith is the way that we explain things that we don't understand, and that's not true. Faith is a lot more than that. You know, what's interesting is, I got thinking about this here just recently, that ancient humans had this idea that the rains, the floods, and all of these different things came about because of different gods or different things, and because of that they developed systems that had to do with faith. You know, they trusted these certain gods to do certain things, you know, in certain ways, and if you did this sacrifice or you did this certain thing, then, you know, the rain will stop, or the rain will start, or the floods won't come, or your crops will grow. You know, they had this idea of faith being that they're trusting in something they don't understand. They're trusting in something that's beyond themselves. They don't understand it, but they understand that they have to rely upon this thing that's outside of themselves. And that's common through all religions. It's common through all cultures. You know, from the beginning of time, man had this thing where they wanted to rely upon something outside of themselves when they had no control over it. It brings you to this revelation that the world doesn't revolve around you. When you think about it, I mean, for instance, using the same example, you know, the caveman or cavewoman figures out that, you know, they need the plants to survive. And so they're trusting and relying upon these plants to provide them nutrients, or the plants or the animals that they find and they kill and they eat. You know, they have these different things they have to rely upon. They realize that their life is reliant upon something that's outside of themselves, and that those things themselves are reliant upon something that's outside of itself. That the sun controls how the plants grow, and the rain, and all these different things. That everything is reliant upon something that's outside. And they didn't know how to describe it. They didn't know what to say about it. All they knew is that there was something beyond them that they wanted to get in touch with. They wanted to get in contact with. They wanted to have some sort of connection with. But it took realizing that the world did not revolve around you. And see, this is what's interesting. This is what happened. When I became a Christian, really what happened to me is that I realized I had no power over my life. I didn't have the capability of changing certain things, and I was at the mercy of the things that were around me. And it's frightening to realize that you're basically, you're out there, you can't control everything, that things are going to happen you have no control over. So if you don't have something else that can help you, then you're stuck, then you're trapped, you have to deal with it. And I realized that in my situation, I was going to college and I didn't believe there was a God. I kind of gave up the whole idea of religion and Christianity and all those different things people, you know, I'd heard growing up. And when my wife was pregnant with our first son, she almost had a miscarriage, and what it made me realize that I had no control over this. I had no power to change this. But what really got to me was, you know, I didn't believe in God. I didn't know praying and all this different stuff. All I knew was that something inside of me just basically said, If you ask Jesus to do something about it, He will. And I believe that, and I put my faith in that. And I took a step further and say, God, you're real. I want you to do something about this. I'll stop doing this if you do this thing. And it wasn't like that. I was just asking for help. I was asking for help from something that was bigger than me, something that was beyond me, something I had no control over, and it worked. And it changed my life. I placed my trust in something outside of my world, and it entered into my world and changed my world. That is what faith is. True faith will change your world. You know, it's interesting that in Hebrews, in the book of Hebrews, it has a whole chapter dedicated to faith, where it explains, faith is this. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. This Hebrews 11. It talks about all these different people who had faith. But it's interesting that the description that it gave of these different people that had faith all had something to do with them stepping out in faith or doing something. It had something to do with them actually achieving something. Faith was an active thing. It wasn't passive. It wasn't something that you just sat around and hoped for. It was an action. You took action when you had faith. And what's interesting is the Hebrew word for faith, I'm going to totally mispronounce it, but it's imana or something like that. But it has to do with action, with support, with trusting, with leaning on. It's something that you do. And the same thing with the Greek word. It has to do with change, pistis. It has to do with actually making a decision to do something. When you have faith, it will change your life. It'll change the way you look at things. And what's interesting is that James even says this in the Bible in James 2. He says faith without works is dead. If your faith has no action, if your faith has no drive, it has no purpose, it has no meaning, if you're just having faith for the sake of having faith, it's dead. There's so many people say, I'm just going to have faith. I'm going to have faith that things are going to work out. I'm just going to have faith that I'm going to get a better job. I'm just going to have faith that, everything's going to work out fine. But really what they're saying is, I sure do hope things are going to get better. That's not faith. Faith in Hebrews 11:1 says it gives substance, it gives meaning, it gives action to the things that you hope for. And I like how Jesse Duplantis has said this before. He said, if it's not now, it's not faith. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for. If faith is not now, it's not faith. It's an action word. It's something that you do.